President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to receive Part 1 of the State Capture Inquiry report tomorrow. Chairperson, Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo said late last year that he will hand over the report in different parts. There have been calls for the report to be presented live in Parliament and then made available to the public. Well, let's discuss this now with the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, that's Casac. The chairperson is Lawson Naidoo and joins us this evening. Good afternoon, or rather good evening, Lawson. Thank you very much for your time. Now, that much-awaited report, Part 1 to be exact, is expected to be handed over to the President tomorrow. Now, we know there's already a debate as to whether it should be handed over to the President, given that he testified before the Commission. Just talk to me about your position on this matter.
Good evening, and thank you very much. Well, as we know, the Constitution provides that a commission of inquiry is established by the President and reports to the President. So it is entirely appropriate that the Acting Chief Justice does indeed submit his report to the President, as he's going to do with Part 1 of that report tomorrow. We know that the report will be delivered in 3 parts, with Part 2 to be submitted at the end of January, and then the final third part at the end of February this year. The Presidency have made it clear that they will be making the report publicly available shortly after they receive it tomorrow. So once that report is in the public domain, Parliament is able to act on that report, to take cognizance of its contents, and to take whatever appropriate action there is deemed necessary for Parliament to take. Now, it's highly unlikely that Part 1 of the report is going to reflect in any way on Mr. Ramaphosa, either as President or previously as Deputy President, because Part 1 of the report is going to deal with issues relating to Transnet and aviation-related matters such as South African Airways and SA Express. So this part of the report is only going to deal with those issues. And, obviously we're all looking forward to seeing, having sight of that report, to see how the report is set out, the structure of the report, and obviously of great concern is whatever findings and recommendations are made in the report, and the findings obviously in relation to people who have been implicated before the Commission.
Now, you stress, Lawson, that at least Part 1 deals with these particular work streams, being the state-owned entities, particularly SAA and Transnet. Would it then mean that the argument is legitimate if it perhaps now is more concerned with Part 2 or Part 3?
Well, it may well be, but as I say, I would think the overriding factor here is the public dissemination of the report, the release of the report to the public, so that we can all see what is in that report. And of course, if there are any findings or conclusions in the report that indicate a conflict of interest for the President, then he must deal with that appropriately and allow another body, such as Parliament, to be able to deal with those aspects of the report where he may be conflicted. But I think it's premature to reach that conclusion just yet.
Then speaking on the period before we actually get to see the report as the public, there's that 4-month period that the President may sit with that report before submitting, in fact, to Parliament and informing the House of his decision on recommendations. Now, I know that some have criticised this, saying it goes against the principle of transparency and accountability. Where do you stand on this? Because some have argued that it's a voluminous report that dealt with, 6 work streams. As we've been speaking, we had Transnet, aviation, we dealt with Eskom, and then there were other even peripheral issues that were brought to the fore. We remember with Agreezy and everybody else that brought other issues as per the invite.
Well, what we know from the application that the Acting Chief Justice brought to the High Court last month, seeking a further extension for the deadline, is that there are in fact 17 work streams that the Commission has been working upon. And we don't know how the other 15 work streams are going to be divided between the next 2 phases of the report. But I think, again, what is absolutely clear is that the report is going to be made publicly available shortly after it's submitted to the President. What the President has asked is for a period of 4 months from the date of the final handover of the third part, at the end of February, for him to formulate a response to the findings and recommendations in particular the recommendations, before he reports to Parliament on his implementation plan with regards to the report. So I think, it may well seem like an unreasonably long time, but as we know, this report is likely to run to many thousands of pages with huge annexures and so on. So the president will require time to apply his mind before he can respond properly to Parliament. But as long as the report is in the public domain, we will all be interrogating it, and I'm sure we'll be discussing it over the next few months, as it is released. And there will certainly be opportunity and the necessity for some action to be taken long before the President reports to Parliament in June. For example, matters that relate to referrals for further investigations and prosecutions to the Hawks and the NPA in particular.
Now, speaking of that report and the one that we are to access as the public, we know that there was some sort of an agreement reached with the Human Science Research Council to publish somewhat of a shorter, more reader-friendly summary for the public. And then there would be that more lengthier one, which would be used by those who are implicated in that report and want to legally challenge it. Are you in favor of that, or you believe that the public themselves even deserve the full report, that if we are to critically analyze and scrutinize and partake in the discourse around this matter, perhaps we should be offered the full report?
Well, I think it's a critical issue of openness and transparency that the full report is released to the public, and that certainly seems to be what the presidency has promised and agreed to do. And so the full report that will be submitted to the president tomorrow will in fact be made public. I think realistically, as I say, this is a report that's going to run to many thousands of pages, and there will be probably very few people who will read the entire report. So an easily accessible executive summary of that report is going to be very important to enable many more South Africans to engage with its contents, with its key findings and recommendations. So I think, a report of this nature definitely requires an executive summary. And, one will certainly hope that the Commission of Inquiry is going to provide that.
Well, we await that report nevertheless, or at least the submission to the President tomorrow. But thank you very much. That was Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, Chairperson Lawson Naidoo.